So 50 Shades of Grey, the erotica trilogy. I cannot get on the subway. Nobody can go to a vacation resort without seeing women holding this book. There's the first one in their hands, and now it's about to hit a milestone.
Well, this week it should hit 20 million books sold. That's an extraordinary number.
In the U.S.
Right.
In the U.S. And put it in perspective, has anyone that you know of in sort of your publishing history reached this mark so quickly?
No, I can't think of a single trilogy that has broken out to that degree. I mean, 20 million readers is a gigantic number if there are, what, 320 million people in the entire country?
Right. And women primarily are the readers they discovered this.
Overwhelmingly women.
This is we're a family show, I like to say that. But let's talk about the subject matter here. Give us a description of the trilogy and what's the premise.
Well, basically, it's a young woman meets a domineering man. They have a relationship, and she tries to get him to see the world her way.
And she has to sign a contract with him about
not to disclose the dimensions of their relationship.
All right, which takes some interesting twists and turns. Now, 31 million of these sold sort of worldwide in English-speaking markets.
English, right.
I want to talk about the numbers again, Jeff, because The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, that was a trilogy that was a huge breakout success. How long did it take The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series to reach this 20 million mark?
A little bit more than 3 years. Now, again, they had one book each year, 2008, 2009, 2010. Here we had a trilogy ready to go from March. But the comparison is apt. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo was a huge success, and it still took more than three and a half years to hit 20 million. E.L.
James is the author, and the publisher is who? Again,
publisher
of this book,
Vintage Books, which is owned by Random House.
And we're looking at her right now. She's been all across the country signing books. I mean, people just waiting to meet and talk to her. E-books versus hard copies. What has been the breakout?
Well, I think what's surprising here is I think we all assumed people who would read erotica would read it digitally. Mm-hmm. That way people couldn't know what they were reading. But I think, in fact, the paperback has actually outsold the digital version by a little bit.
The paperback has.
Right.
And, you know, I don't know about you, but everywhere I go, it's either somebody on their Kindle or their Nook, or they have the hard copy, and they're not hiding the hard copy. And I wonder if we sort of turned a page with this book culturally, that so many people are reading it, that it has become like, okay to really talk about sex, and maybe talk about sex that pushes borders that people might have felt uncomfortable about before, Jeff.
I think that's a very interesting question, because women were actually the earliest adapters of digital reading. 4 or 5 years ago, women led the way, because women were reading digitally to read romance novels. Mm-hmm. They didn't want other people to see the covers of their romance novels. Now it seems like there is some sort of shift underway where people don't really care if other people know what they're reading. And
in terms of this, I mean, having a three-book series seems to be the magic number. I mean, you know, in terms of getting yourself a book deal and a franchise.
Well, you need a certain amount of copy to have a franchise. How many books were there in Harry Potter?
Right.
7, right? And some of the other larger series have been 3. Hunger Games, for example, I think had three books in that too.
All right, 50 Shades of Grey. Jeff Trachtenberg helping keep the momentum going right here on Lunch Break. Have you read them, Jeff?
I've read half of the first one.
And what did you think?
Entertaining.
He's stuttering, he's turning red. I love Jeff Trachtenberg. I put you on the spot. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move from erotica to ESPN. How's that? They both start with E. ESPN is playing some political football. They're going to be adding more political ads to their airtime. Suzanne Vernizia is coming on right now. As soon as we get Jeff Trachtenberg off the set.
Sorry.
We got to work this out, folks. We got to figure out how to get these people on and off the set better. We're going to do that, though. We're going to do it after we talk about ESPN. All right, Suzanne, so they have not done this in the past. I mean, ESPN, you've really watched the games. You haven't seen a lot of, like, political advertising. That's going to change.
You would get at the, you know, when the race came down to the wire, you'd get the national advertisers on the political front, the ones with lots of money at the final hour. But because they're a cable network, they don't have all those local affiliates around the country. So it was harder for cable in general to have any of the sort of lead up to the whole race, the cheaper sort of political stuff, you can say, going in. And now, yes, you're going to get a heavier dose.
I mean, does this mean ESPN didn't get the sort of, you know, upfront dollars that they wanted to? What's the take on that?
Look, this has really never been done before, this kind of deal. So when I pressed the networks, I said, look, you know, how come this is having an impact? And most analysts say, well, you know what, the upfront obviously they didn't have strong demand, or else they would have just gladly handed that ad time over to the national advertisers. To be sure, ESPN did pretty well in the upfront. They've got price increases, they're selling more inventory than they did last year, but it's definitely not at the level it was a year ago, where they got double-digit increases. There's a couple of factors. You know, there's the shaky economy, some big consumer packaged good companies are cutting back a little bit, but at the end of the day, with the, you know, a big bucket of political ad dollars out there, how can you ignore it? You've got to find a way. These cable networks are dying because it's all going to the broadcast stations, and it's a lot of money.
Now, I wonder, Suzanne, because you've been covering advertising for